Thank you all very much for the invitation to come and talk to you today. I will be following on from the GM of Marketing and Communications for Rugby New Zealand, Shane Harmon, who presented to many of you at a similar conference last year. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the information that he gave you, but rather take a bit of a focus on some of the things that we've been doing at Rugby New Zealand 2011 to really make the most of the digital assets that we've set up. I have to confess I was a little nervous about coming to present to you today, not only because of the New Zealand accent, which I wasn't sure you would understand, but also because being here in Melbourne, while I know you're all sports crazy, I'm not really sure how much you know about rugby. So I thought I'd start off with just a little bit of an overview of Rugby World Cup 2011. As Ed said, it will be the third largest sporting event in the world, followed after the Olympic Games and the FIFA World Cup. It's obviously the biggest sport in 2011, a sporting event in 2011. We'll be hosting 48 matches across the country, hosting 20 teams from around the world. Games will be hosted in 12 different stadia, right from Whangarei up in the North Island down to Invercargill in the South Island. Teams will also be hosted in a total of 24 towns and cities across the country. As the organising committee based in New Zealand, RNZ is tasked with selling 1.35 million tickets for the event, and I'd just like to point out that ticket revenue is our only source of revenue as the local organising committee, so it does tend to be the majority of our marketing and comms focus. We are quite a small team. We're about 150 now in total, based in Wellington and Auckland currently, but we are assisted by about 5,000 volunteers across the country, and their support has been phenomenal to date. In addition to the New Zealand-based fans, we also have a predicted 85,000 visitors who will be coming to New Zealand for the tournament, making it a really important opportunity for tourism and business opportunities for New Zealand. And as of today, we have 92 days to go, so we're very much in the home stretch and building up to what's going to be a really exciting tournament, not only in New Zealand, but also for sports fans globally. But if you don't believe me, I'd like to show you a little bit of a video with some possibly more familiar faces than mine who will give you a bit of a heads up as to what's going to be coming in September.
The Rugby World Cup tournament is it. It's the pinnacle. It's the Everest. For most players, there's only ever one opportunity to be a world champion. Comes at a Rugby World Cup. Give them that experience that only New Zealand can give them. That experience of being in a country that is utterly passionate about its rugby.
It is now the time for every New Zealander to seize the opportunity and become part of the biggest sporting event to be ever hosted in your country.
They are getting a standing ovation.
Georgia against Uruguay at the Sydney Football Stadium. 28,500 people. Now try and beat that.
Look around the crowd and enjoy this moment.
Having full stadia, having people shouting and screaming and totally involved with the game, I think will be a big part of making a successful Rugby World Cup.
Be a lot of hype and build-up, which is great. That's what it's all about, and that will intensify as we get near the tournament. Once you get there, let's get on the field and play that first game.
England, the defending champions, up against the champions of 12 years ago, South Africa. The final game is underway.
I suspect this event will never come back to the Shaky Isles, so don't go wondering and be a part of it.
But make sure you get your ticket and you get to the game, and you can say one day to your grandchildren that you were there.
It's a stadium of 4 million people. I can't wait to get there.
So as those former Rugby World Cup winning captains so clearly articulated, it is going to be a fantastic event. And just as a little spot prize, I have an official Rugby World Cup replicable for anyone that can tweet the names of those winning captains. Extra bonus points if you get them in order of the cups that they won. So when I was thinking about the topic that I was going to present today, I was obviously spurred on by the fact that Rugby World Cup has just hit a major milestone in terms of our social media strategy. A couple of weeks ago we reached 1 million fans on Facebook. We're up to 1.5 million views on our YouTube channel and about to hit 30,000 followers on Twitter. But when I was asking around my colleagues and friends about what kind of things they would like to know about our social media strategy, I was kind of taken aback by a friend of mine that said, well, your Rugby World Cup, you don't really have to do a lot. Basically, set up your platforms and the fans will come. And I suppose to a certain extent, with a global brand, a sports brand, we are in a very privileged position where we have some fantastic, fanatical fans who are very supported and very committed to rugby and to Rugby World Cup. But I just wanted to emphasise that it's really not all about the numbers. Obviously, the numbers are a fantastic way for us to feedback and really understand that we are connecting with those fans that we've been able to reach so far. But I think that there's a number of principles around social media strategy that apply whether you have 1,000 fans, 10,000 fans or 1 million fans. And I think that's why conferences like this are really fantastic. We've already heard from a couple of great speakers and seen some extremely exciting things that have been going on in the world of professional sport. But I also understand that there's a huge cross-section of sporting organisations that are here in this room today. Not all of you have established social media strategies. Some of you have been playing around with it for a little while. Some of you have been doing fantastic things already. And some of you have really just got started, if at all. So what I'm going to do today is really look at 5 key things that we've been doing at RNZ, which has really helped drive our social media platforms. They're pretty basic, and what I'd like to suggest is that they're really for you to take or leave as you see fit. Shape them, mould them, adopt them into your own business strategies. You guys know your business better than anybody. You guys know your audience better than anybody. So while these are things that we have learned along the way, I'd really like you to start thinking about, if you're not already, some of the ways that you can adapt these to suit your own needs. So today I'm just going to be looking briefly at strategy, advertising, content, value and integration. So as I say, pretty simple things, but they've really been key for us in terms of the way that we've developed our own social strategies. So obviously all businesses will have different objectives. Rugby World Cup, as I say, being the organising committee, our only source of revenue is ticket sales. However, we also have the challenge of raising the profile of rugby, not only within New Zealand but internationally, encouraging a huge number of international visitors to come to New Zealand for Rugby World Cup, and also galvanising what we refer to as the Stadium of 4 million, which is all of those potential rugby fans that exist in New Zealand. And as any of you who've probably been to New Zealand know, the passion for rugby is already quite high. So tapping into those fans and really engaging with them via our social platforms. We've broken our strategy down into 5 key phases, which I'll just go into very briefly. Obviously with Rugby World Cup, we have a final end point. Many of you in your businesses will go through cyclical phases and campaigns. So in terms of our strategy of key phases, we first looked at the ways that we could build community. So that was things like tapping into our existing audiences, looking to ways to build new audiences, and all of our other stakeholder groups that are so vital to Rugby World Cup. Following that, we looked at the ways that we could then start to engage with those customers and build a really strong relationship with them. We kicked off our social media strategy in September 2009, which was 2 years to go before Rugby World Cup started. So we've had quite a while to build up that level of engagement, but it's also been a challenge trying to hold those fans' engagement over a sustained period of time, and we actually have no specific rugby content of our own that we can feed out to fans. Phase 3 started in March of last year when we first went on sale with our ticketing products, and really was a conscious effort on our behalf to interact with fans in a way that added value to them, but also to use the channels wisely in the way that we were able to sell them the various ticketing products that we have, generating not only interest and engagement, but also using it as a strong marketing lead. Phase 4 will begin in around late August this year when we move into a very exciting tournament time period. And I'll go into a bit more detail and give you some sneak peeks to some of the things that we're going to be doing come tournament time. And then following Rugby World Cup 2011, we then have the move to Rugby World Cup 2015, which will be hosted by England. And we'll be transferring all of our digital assets across to England for them to use, building on the fan base that we've already established over the past 2 years, and hopefully sending them forward with a really fantastic and engaged fan base. Now, as I say, obviously Rugby World Cup is quite a streamlined process with a specific end date. But I would really encourage you to look at your own business strategies and your marketing plans and really focus your digital strategy around key communications and marketing milestones. Obviously, the messaging is so interlinked and so connected that you can't really avoid now utilising your digital assets across your other marketing and comms activities. So really do spend the time to look at the ways that you're planning your strategy right across your business and the ways that you can incorporate your digital platforms into those strategies. So advertising is probably a bit of a given for a lot of you. I've seen some fantastic things happening here in Australia with social media assets and the way that you promote them and integrate them into your own, your existing businesses. Rugby World Cup, when we first launched the platforms, we did have the option of making a event-specific page, so Rugby World Cup 2011, but we opted to go for the more generic Rugby World Cup with the, I suppose, ambition back then that we would be able to generate something that was really important for rugby and that we could possibly pass on to future organising committees for the growth of the sport. So you'll notice that all of our vanity URLs are quite generic in nature, very consistent and hopefully very easy for fans to find us. We currently operate the 4 platforms. And then we've also worked really hard to build the credibility of these platforms, not only in the way that we brand the platforms. We have a fantastic look and feel for the 2011 event, which incorporates the New Zealand design elements as well as the internationally recognised Rugby World Cup brand. But also really working hard to incorporate our social media platforms across everything we do in our business. So from our media releases to our press and print ads to our publications. We have a huge number of tools at our disposal that we've really tapped into to really generate a lot of credibility for our social media strategy and to show fans that we're serious about it, that it does cross every level of our business and has become a really important tool for us to connect with fans. So there's just a couple of examples. The one down at the bottom here is a little widget that we developed very early on, which has a great countdown clock functionality. Obviously everyone wants to count down to the day of kickoff, and has been a great tool for us to get out to participating unions, to stadiums, to regional tourism organisations. Pretty much anyone that wants to connect with Rugby World Cup, we're able to hand off this widget, and some great connections there to our social media sites as well. Could I just get an indication of those of you that have done any kind of experimentation with the Facebook ads module? Just a show of hands. Great. It's actually a lot less than I was expecting. Facebook ads, sometimes I think they should pay me for talking about this, but I'm a huge advocate of Facebook ads. There's a basic ad module which is available to any administrator of a fan page. It's very, very easy to use. I have to say, when we first started with this, we did do a lot of trial and error advertising. We tried different images, different text, different target audiences, different demographics. Very, very small campaigns, a few $100s here or there just to see what was going to work for us. But has really helped us understand the audience and what's going to help increase our click-through rates. We've now run quite a number of targeted ad campaigns, not only at rugby fans, but also tourism, potential travellers to New Zealand, fans of other rugby sports, other international sporting events, and we found them to be a really, really cost-effective means of building our fan base. Obviously, Facebook ads, as anyone that's played around with online advertising knows, they're a lot more sticky than your traditional banner advertising. You post a banner on an ad and you get the single click through, hopefully, to your intended point of sale. But capturing a fan like via Facebook is basically the start of your relationship. So while we work really, really hard to get that like, we often forget about the long-term relationship that we then have to work really hard on to ensure that those fans stay connected, and hopefully being able to achieve a certain number of touch points with them throughout the course of that relationship. And also, given the nature of Facebook and the ability to share likes via your wall, or the ability for friends to see when they comment or where they like on content, they're also very viral. The other Facebook tool that we've been using, we've been working very closely with both Facebook's office in New Zealand and also the international marketing team, is the reach block functionality. For anyone that's not familiar with a reach block, it's basically a blanket ad campaign in one particular country for a 24-hour period. So for a country like New Zealand, we're obviously a fairly small market, but as I say, trying to build the stadium of 4 million with a nation of connected fans, this has been a really great tool for us. And you can see the huge levels of click-through that we've been able to achieve just through 2 campaigns. What we've done is focus these reach blocks, they're not cheap, focus the reach blocks around particular ticket sales campaigns. And I would like to say that while they're not cheap, they are but a tiny drop in the bucket of our total marketing campaign for ticket sales. And I can confidently report that outside of search and internal sites, that Facebook is our #1 driver of traffic to our ticketing sales website. So for a very small advertising spend, we've been able to achieve some incredible results and at real return on investment in terms of the advertising that we've done via Facebook. So I do quite like this one as well, though, because the 2 graphs that I showed you just before are but a mere bump in the growth of the page that we've had overall, but have been really important for us in terms of building a really engaged fan base of New Zealand fans. So the next bit, and this is probably the bit I'm going to focus on the most, is engaging content. And we've already heard from all of the previous speakers how important it is to really place an emphasis on your content strategy. While it's very tempting, as we all know, to start off easy with the RSS feeds and existing tools that we have at our disposal, there are a number of ways that we can tailor our content really easily to increase the levels of engagement that we have with our fans. At Rugby World Cup, we have a team of 4 who all work part-time on social media, so we all have other duties besides. We have 2 based in New Zealand and we have 2 based in the UK, so we're able to achieve a kind of 24-hour moderation of the sites, which is a fantastic tool that we have. But in order to do that, we also have to have quite an established content plan. So a week in advance, we plan out the majority of content that we're going to publish across all of our different channels, how we're going to frame that, and the ways that we can really tailor the content to really hit the mark on each of the different channels. So, for example, we might publish a media release or an article via our website, but then we have to look at the different ways that we can frame that material, obviously via Facebook, encouraging people to comment on it or like it or generate some sort of level of feedback with them. Obviously via Twitter, we're limited in the number of characters, and then if we can, access to video so we can send it out via our other channels through YouTube and the like. So it's really important. I'm an advocate that you don't necessarily have to create new content for social media. If your budgets and your resources don't allow it, the first thing I would suggest that you do is simply look at ways that you can reframe your existing content in a much more engaging and active way. Then once you've got the hang of that, then you can start looking at the ways that you can better use your resources to create unique social media content. And of course, one of the major things to do all along the way is to keep track of how you're going. There's some great tools out there. The Facebook Insights tool is fantastic. Anyone that's a partner site with Twitter gets access to some Twitter insights. And there's a number of free tools also on the market that really help you see the levels of engagement that you're able to generate and help you kind of learn along the way what works and what doesn't. Now, this is a graph from a guy called Brian Carter that I came across a couple of weeks ago. And I think this is actually a bit of a social media myth that he's managed to shatter, I suppose, if you will. The blue circle right at the very bottom is the number of fans who actually visit your page. It's a very, very small proportion, and generally, if at all, it's only once. From then on, it's really up to your content to do the rest of the job. So the bigger purple circle is the potential number of fans that never see your content again. The way that the Facebook newsfeed is now structured, unless you click on the most recent filter option, you'll only see the highest ranking news content in your feed. So it's basically up to us as content editors and publishers and video producers to really make and increase the levels of our content engagement. So we can have effect on the two blue circles in the middle in terms of the number of fans that see our post, which is directly influenced by the number of fans that like and comment on the post. So you're really just basically increasing the chance of your content being seen by other fans in their own personal newsfeed. So just a bit of a challenge, I guess, for all of us working in this area. So the ways that we've been doing that at RNZ are basically at every opportunity to ask questions of fans and invite their feedback. We encourage discussion not only with ourselves via the discussion boards and the comments feature, but also encourage fans to talk to each other and have been using fan forums and polls and a number of other free tools that are able to generate really, really high levels of engagement for very, very low cost. And I think most importantly is, as I said earlier, you understand your audience the best, and it's up to you to really figure out what they want to hear from you. No one really wants to be sold to, but they are very keen, obviously, to connect with your athletes, with your video content, with other fans. There's a whole number of tools at your disposal that are very, very easy to tap into and very easy to make social. So for us as Rugby World Cup, this graph obviously it shows a very, very global audience and often surprises a number of people, because you can see that the New Zealand fan base of our page is only about 11%. So contrary to popular belief, it's not all Kiwis supporting the All Blacks. We have a fantastic international rivalry which exists on the page. We have fans from all over the world showing support for their team, talking to other fans. And we've actually seen a real community emerging from our social media sites where fans offer advice to other fans who might be travelling to New Zealand. Obviously there's some great rugby banter that happens, and it's been really great to see the fan engagement emerge over the last 2 years. And obviously this will but increase as we get closer to the tournament and the competition hots up. So as I say, there's a number of free tools that you can look at that are really, really fantastic ways to generate high levels of engagement. And I would argue that it would be best to explore these options before you lay down a single dollar in terms of apps and competitions and things like that, just to really get a grasp on what your audience is looking for, how they're going to respond, what they want to hear about, what they're most interested in, and then start to develop some of your more expensive or other marketing campaigns. So, just some examples of some content that we've published. You'll see we try and incorporate video as much as possible. Obviously great rugby images, polls, discussions, the fan focus questions. We've just run a really great series on each of the 11 host cities, asking fans to give their feedback on what things they would recommend other fans do while visiting one of those cities. Now this is something that we as Rugby World Cup are really just starting to get into, and that's the mix between online and offline. Obviously with the competition only starting in September, we don't have a lot of opportunities to engage with fans offline to date. We have done a number of cup tours, taking the Webb Ellis Cup on tour around New Zealand and also internationally with some of our sponsors. And these provide great opportunities to get that real online-offline mix. And I suppose there's probably many of you in this audience that have a lot more opportunities than we do at the moment. Things like your match day activities, your behind-the-scenes opportunities with teams, with athletes, things that you readily have access to that fans are just itching to get their hands on. You can achieve a really, really fantastic online-offline mix by incorporating your normal business activities into your online content. So again, just encouraging you to think of the ways that you can do that in your own businesses. In July this year, we'll be going on tour with the Webb Ellis Cup in a custom-designed truck as part of the Rugby World Cup Roadshow. It was done very successfully in both 2007 and 2003. It is part of our major ticket sales campaign, which kicks off in July, and will be a pretty significant sales vehicle for us, excuse the pun. But we'll also give fans a taste of what Rugby World Cup is actually going to be like. We're going to 27 towns and cities across the country within a month. So it's a fairly intensive period. We'll be incorporating all of this into our social media channels, inviting fans to come along. They'll be able to have their photo taken with the Web Alice Cup and download it free of charge from our Flickr site. We'll have a daily video package. We'll have all sorts of great links between the two. And this is just one way that we're giving fans a bit of a teaser as to how fully integrated our social media is going to be come tournament time. And I'm going to go into that shortly. As I say, this is just a bit of a glimpse of some of the measurement tools that are available. This is a snapshot of our Facebook content for the month of April to May. And you can see very easily how effective this tool is just to see how your content is tracking. The blue line is the number of likes and the green line is the number of comments. So by matching the peaks and troughs with the content that we publish on each day, we very clearly get a great overview of what content is working really effectively, and you can see that the video content and the fan focus are coming through as trends that are very, very engaging. And you can also see very easily which content has flopped, and hopefully learn from your mistakes and not do it again. As I say, social media is a trial and error process, and I encourage you all to do this type of measurement, whether it be through a proper tracking tool or even just maintaining a spreadsheet which recognises likes and comments. It's as easy as that. And just really learn from the feedback that your fans are giving you. One of the most interesting posts that we've done recently was we started the development of the official Rugby World Cup mobile app, and to help our research, basically used Facebook as a mini focus group. So put out a post asking fans what they would like to see in a Rugby World Cup app, and we got hundreds and hundreds of comments and pieces of feedback, people giving us their ideas. I'm sure there were some developers in there as well, trying to get a contract out of it. But so just a really great tool to understand what fans wanted and also make them feel a part of the whole Rugby World Cup experience. And I think you can see those trends emerging when you do use some of the tracking tools that are available. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is just adding value. And again, I'm talking from the learning curve that we've been through at RNZ 2011, and I'm sure your own learning curves have gone along a similar vein. But just look at understanding your audience, as I said, not only the demographics, but also their interests, what kind of content they're looking for from you. Have a look at the style and tone that you're using, and then build that into your own social media strategy in line with your marketing and comms strategy. Just look at some of these in a bit more detail. So obviously Rugby World Cup comes from quite a traditional background. The IRB is still quite a formal organisation. Rugby tends to be delivered in a very traditional manner. So when we first set up the platforms, we did have to be very conscious of the style and voice that we were using across our different platforms. Often when I speak to people working within social media, it's across a wide variety of different areas, and many come from corporate backgrounds. I think we as sport marketers and communicators are very, very lucky because, as I say, we do have very passionate fans, and they generally, for the most part, want to hear what we have to say, and we can afford to be a little bit more casual. But I've had some conversations with, in particular, 2 Kiwi banks who've been trying to get into the social media field, and they've both taken very different tack as to the way that they communicate with their fans. One has become kind of the friendly bank, who's there to answer all your questions. The other has maintained their very professional banking image, which, to be fair, is what many people expect from their bank. Now, I'm not saying that there's a right and wrong voice for social media, but again, it's something that you need to explore and you need to develop in conjunction with your own audience and the way that they react to your content. As I say, the news that you publish will, for the most part, appear in your fans' daily news feed, alongside their mates, alongside their family, alongside their other likes that other fan pages that they connect with. So there is a lot more clutter via social media these days, and to really ensure that you're connecting with your fans, it's about the content, it's also about the way that you speak to them. And I think the way that you speak to them can be often more engaging or not, depending on the way that you want to frame your information. It's always very interesting when I talk about information versus sales. As I say, as the organising committee, we are tasked with selling 1.3 million tickets. and it is a major focus of our marketing and comms activities. However, I think we all know that no one really likes being sold to, and I do think you have to balance your corporate sales objectives with the long-term relationship that you're trying to develop with your fans. If you do have to sell, do it in a really creative way. Do it in a way that fans will realise is adding value for them. I'm not saying you don't sell via social media, because that would really defeat a lot of the purpose of having these great platforms. But try to do it in a much more creative way. And I think we've seen some really great examples this morning of ways that you can engage with fans and sell them your product in a fun and engaging way. So, yeah. The other way that we have found the most value in terms of our social media platforms, particularly on Facebook and Twitter, is the use as a customer service tool. We do have a fully staffed ticketing help desk, which takes fans' questions via phone and email. But we've also found that our social media platforms have become a really important customer service tool as well. Now, this is something that you can shy away from if you don't have the resources to manage. By all means, drill it back into your help desks and other customer service teams. But I think very early on we saw that we were getting a huge number of questions from fans, particularly around the ticketing process that we have. It's the first time that New Zealand fans have been exposed to an application-based ticketing process. It's the first time that there's been different phased approaches to ticketing in New Zealand, and fans really weren't familiar with the process. So we found that both the discussion boards on Facebook and also Twitter have been great tools to really help educate fans. And as any teacher will tell you, for every question asked, there's probably 10 more people in the room that wanted to know the same thing. So publishing as much content as we can and responding to fans' every questions has been really, really important. And you'll see on our discussion boards on our fan page, we have reams and reams and reams of topics that fans have started themselves, that we've started, and they're just growing and growing and growing. Again, it is very resource intensive, and this is a strategy decision that we have made, that we're going to commit resources to help manage that. But as I say, it has also turned our social media platforms into great leads for our ticketing sales, and also other things such as our volunteer program and our online shop. So. Now, apps and competitions, while I say don't run into them at full steam, I definitely see the value of apps and competitions. And what we've done is aligned the apps that we've created with our key ticketing sales phases. So what we've done, as I say, we don't want to present sales messaging in a really blatant way, but we've managed to use apps in a way that presents ticketing, information and click-throughs in a fun and engaging tool. So the first one that we kicked off with in phase 1 of our ticketing sales campaign was called the World's Biggest Scrum. So this campaign, the ticketing campaign, focused around team and venue pool packs. And so we were encouraging fans to support their team not only by purchasing tickets to the games, but also to support them in an online scrum. You can see here the first shot is the semi-final match between New Zealand and Ireland. And this actually came right down to the wire. In the final few minutes, we had a huge level of virality with fans inviting their friends to jump on board and support and add weight to the two scrums. And Ireland actually edged out the All Blacks in this particular case. But the overall winner of the app was, interestingly enough, Georgia. And I think is a really interesting look at how Georgia, not being a very influential rugby nation, but being very well connected in terms of their social media access, used this app and really got behind it and invited their friends and ultimately ended up taking out the title, which was fantastic to see. The second app that we ran was around phase 2 of ticketing sales, which looked at individual tickets. Out of the 1.5 million tickets that we are going to be selling, around 70% of those will be going to Kiwis. And of those tickets, only 4 of the pool matches will involve New Zealand. So we have a major ticketing task on our hands as to how we sell games to those other matches that don't include the All Blacks. So what we did is we used an app, took a very quirky personality test, asking fans a series of questions which ultimately led them to be allocated a second team. Obviously, you can see in the second screen we then had click-throughs to the ticketing sites for those particular matches. And this actually ties in with a much wider community engagement program that we have running around Adopt a Second Team, which will see towns and cities across the country adopting the other 19 teams, waving their flags, learning their languages, learning the words to their anthems, and has been a real catalyst, I think, in terms of generating support for the other teams. As a bit of a sneak peek, this is the app that we're going to be launching in July to support the final phase of our ticketing campaign. We kind of went back to our rugby roots a little bit with this one. I'm not sure how many of you played when you were younger the Spot the Ball game. I think it used to run through a lot of newspapers and magazines where they take out the rugby ball and you had to try and guess where it appeared in the picture. So we're putting a bit of a digital spin on an old game, and you can now drag and drop your little ball as to where you think the ball should be in the picture. And we've actually got it right down to the winning pixel. So you have to be pretty accurate if you want to play. But again, a great way to promote our ticketing campaign, and a small drop in the bucket really in terms of our overall marketing spend for tickets, but a great way to build engagement and a long-term relationship with our fans. So just to finish up, I'm going to look at some of the ways that we're going to be incorporating social media across everything we do in terms of marketing and comms for Rugby World Cup. We kick off on the 9th of September, and I'm really pleased to say that social media is going to be an integral part of our entire online communications plan. We have a central editorial team which the IRB brings in for the event of around 50 or so journalists. We'll be publishing content on Rugby World Cup in 3 languages, although our social media sites, Facebook and YouTube will remain in English, and Twitter will be available in 3 languages. This is tapping into the IRB resources that they bring as an international sporting event. I think you guys are the first people in the world to see these, actually. So we'll be launching in August the official Rugby World Cup mobile application. It will be multi-platform, available on iPhone, iPad, Android, and there'll also be a special super edition, which is going to be launched by our sponsor, BlackBerry. So very exciting, very comprehensive, fantastic integration of social media, allowing check-ins, allowing deals, allowing video content, allowing sharing content with your friends. Some really exciting stuff happening in this space, and I think we're going to hear from a few other speakers just about the value of mobile, and we're not ignoring that by any means. So I won't dwell too long on that. Please don't take any photos. And that will be available free of charge across all platforms as well. So, fantastic work that we're doing with a number of our worldwide partners and sponsors. And it's great to have their support. Again, if you're struggling with resources and funding for your social media platforms, do see what your sponsors are interested in. We've had some ideas that they've thrown to us, we've thrown some ideas to them, and they've come on board with a number of great initiatives that we're going to be partnering with together. So Emirates has been a sponsor of our video content over the past couple of years, and we'll continue that through the tournament. MasterCard will be sponsoring a fantastic Man of the Match application, encouraging fans to vote on their favourite player at the conclusion of every match. And they're also partnering with us to provide a social media specific daily video package that we'll be broadcasting on rugbyworldcup.com and via all of our social media platforms as well. DHL has come to the party and will be sponsoring half-time and full-time match highlights, as well as a 24-hour delayed replay of every match. Again, struggling with broadcast restrictions around broadcast feeds, this is a fantastic way that we can offer fans access to our footage without impinging on any broadcast rights that are existing. DHL is also sponsoring the live match tracker, which will be running on rugbyworldcup.com, and for the first time will also have its own dedicated Twitter feed in both English, French and Spanish. A few others still to sign off on exactly what they'll be doing, such as Heineken and Land Rover, but some really exciting things in store with both of them. Microsoft will be offering their Silverlight technology for our video functionality on rugbyworldcup.com, and also downloadable e-diaries for Microsoft products. And of course, BlackBerry have got some fantastic things in store in terms of their mobile and tablet applications. So just to finish off, a quick summary of how we're going to be incorporating social media. My team of 4 will be sitting within the central editorial team, 2 based in New Zealand, 2 based in the UK, providing round-the-clock content publication and also moderation of all of our social media sites. We'll be tailoring every single publication that we have to Facebook in order to make it more engaging. It will be similar content to what is available on rugbyworldcup.com, but framed in a different way that increases the level of engagement that we have with our fans. We'll obviously be utilising YouTube as well as the Silverlight player on rugbyworldcup.com, live updates via Twitter, photo galleries from both official photographers but also user-generated content on both Flickr and Facebook. And although I can't release any details yet, there will certainly be location-based promotions incorporating both Facebook and Foursquare products. So watch this space.